The antiseptic smell of the hospital clung to my scrubs as I trudged down the fluorescent-lit corridor, my shoulders heavy with exhaustion. 12 hours into my shift as an ER nurse at Manhattan General, and the cacophony of beeping monitors, squeaking gurney wheels, and pained moans had become white noise, a soundtrack to my unremarkable existence. "Natalie, we need you in room 4. Dr. Patel's voice cut through my mental fog. "Blood bank's running low on O-negative for the John Doe from the shooting. Any donors on staff?" I raised my hand before my brain fully processed the question. I'm O-negative, universal donor. The one good thing my absent father had given me. Rare blood that could save anyone. Perfect, donation room, now. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, a last-minute shift swap with Cindy, who had concert tickets she couldn't bear to waste. One small decision that would unravel the careful simplicity of my life. The donation chair's vinyl was cold against my skin as the phlebotomist, a new guy I didn't recognize, prepared my arm. Through the glass partition, I glimpsed frantic activity in the trauma room across the hall. Whoever needed my blood was important enough to warrant 6 medical staff hovering around the bed, their faces grim with concentration. "Any chance you know who he is?" I asked, wincing as the needle slid under my skin. "Some European businessman," the phlebotomist replied, his voice deliberately casual in that way that suggested there was more to the story. "Drive-by on 5th Avenue. Pretty brazen hit, if you ask me." I tried to peek around the partition again. All I could see was a forest of IV poles and a glimpse of olive skin, dark hair, and crimson-stained sheets. Something about the deliberate way the blinds were being drawn, the suited men appearing in the hallway speaking urgently into earpieces. This wasn't a normal patient. The blood flowed from my veins, dark and viscous, destined for the stranger's body. Something primal whispered in my mind. "A part of you will be inside him. You'll be connected." I shook away the thought. 20 minutes later, lightheaded but functioning, I continued my shift. The trauma wing had grown eerily quiet. The mystery patient moved to a private room on the top floor with security I'd never seen before at Manhattan General. Rumors rippled through the staff. Organized crime, witness protection, foreign dignitary. I was too exhausted to care. 3 days later, I'd nearly forgotten about my donation. Life continued in its comforting routine. Work, home to my tiny apartment, microwave dinner, sleep, repeat. The solitude suited me after the chaos of the hospital. No one needed anything from me once I clocked out. The envelope appeared under my door on a rainy Thursday evening. Heavy cream stationery, my name written in elegant script. Inside, a simple note on watermarked paper. "Thank you for your gift of life. Some debts can never be repaid, but I shall try." No signature. Alongside it, a small velvet box containing a pair of ruby earrings that even my untrained eye could tell were worth more than my annual salary. My first instinct was to return them. Hospital policy strictly prohibited accepting gifts from patients. My second instinct, as I ran my finger over the exquisite stones, was to wonder how anyone had discovered my home address. I called the hospital administration the next morning, but they claimed no knowledge of the gift or how a patient might have obtained my personal information. Patient confidentiality prevented them from revealing the mystery man's identity, though the supervisor's voice tightened when I described the earrings. She advised me to return them to hospital security immediately. I intended to. I really did. But that night, as I stared at the gleaming stones under my apartment's harsh lighting, curiosity eclipsed caution. I'd been invisible my entire life, to my foster parents who collected checks, to the stream of forgettable dates who never called back, to hospital administrators who couldn't remember my name after 5 years of service. Yet someone had seen me, tracked me down, and sent this extravagant thank you. In a moment of rebellious whimsy, I fastened the earrings to my lobes and examined my reflection. The rubies caught the light, transforming my ordinary features into something almost striking. For once, the face staring back seemed to belong to someone significant. I wore them to my shift the next day, hidden beneath my hair, a secret warmth against my skin, a private rebellion. A tiny flame of importance kindled in my chest. The whispers reached me before I'd finished my first round of vitals. The VIP patient, my blood recipient, had checked out against medical advice, leaving behind a trail of generous tips for the staff and unanswered questions. Natalie, Dr. I. Patel's voice held an unfamiliar note of deference as he approached during my lunch break. "Someone's here to see you. A patient?" "Not exactly." He lowered his voice. "Look, whatever happens, you never heard anything from me. Understood? But the guy from last week, the shooting victim, his name is Salvatore Russo, old Italian family, import-export business officially." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Patel's eyes darted around told me it should. "His driver's waiting for you in the lobby. Says Mr. Russo requests the pleasure of thanking his blood angel in person." Patel's expression was unreadable. "You don't have to go. In fact, if you were my sister, I'd tell you to run in the opposite direction." I should have listened. Should have claimed illness, called security, manufactured any excuse. Instead, curiosity, that fatal flaw of every cautionary tale, propelled me forward. The man waiting in the lobby stood out against the institutional backdrop, like a hawk among pigeons. Impeccably tailored suit, military posture, eyes constantly scanning the environment. When he spotted me, his gaze lingered on my earlobes, visible now with my hair pulled back. "Miss Natalie Chen, not a question. Mr. Russo would be honored if you would join him for dinner this evening, to express his gratitude. I'm working until 8. The words tumbled out before I could formulate a proper refusal. "We'll wait." He handed me a card with an address embossed in gold leaf. "A car will collect you at your apartment at 9. I opened my mouth to object. How did they know where I lived? But he was already walking away, speaking rapidly into his earpiece in Italian. The rest of my shift passed in a haze of anticipation and alarm. Logical Natalie, sensible Natalie, the girl who always checked her locks twice and never talked to strangers, was screaming warnings in my head. But beneath that voice was a quieter, more insistent one. "When was the last time anything interesting happened to you?" At home, I changed 3 times, finally settling on my one good dress, a navy blue sheath that managed to be both modest and flattering. I fastened the ruby earrings with trembling fingers, their weight both reassuring and terrifying. The black Maserati idling outside my building drew stares from neighbors who normally looked through me. The driver, different from the lobby messenger, held the door without speaking. As we glided through the city, I tried to steady my breathing, to remind myself I was a professional who had simply helped a patient. This was just a thank you dinner. Nothing more. We arrived at an unmarked building in Little Italy, its understated exterior belying the armed guards who nodded respectfully as we approached. I was escorted through a private entrance and up an elevator that required a fingerprint scan to operate. The doors opened directly into a penthouse restaurant, or what appeared to be one, except there were no other diners, only a single table positioned before floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. And there he was, standing with his back to me, silhouetted against the city lights. Tall and broad-shouldered, his posture suggesting both power and the recent injury I'd helped treat. When he turned, I felt the air leave my lungs. Salvatore Russo couldn't have been more than 40, but authority etched every line of his face, from the obsidian eyes that assessed me instantly to the strong jaw darkened with precisely maintained stubble. A thin scar traced his left cheekbone, somehow enhancing rather than diminishing his devastating appearance. He was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful, a deadly perfection that triggers both admiration and alarm. "Miss Chen." His voice was deep, accented, each word deliberate. "My blood angel." He gestured to my ears, where his rubies caught the light. "They suit you, though I see now they pale next to your beauty." I should have corrected him, should have clarified that I was simply doing my job, should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I blushed like a schoolgirl and accepted the seat he pulled out for me. "I don't normally accept gifts from patients," I managed to say as a waiter appeared with champagne. "I am not a normal patient." His smile didn't reach his eyes, and technically the hospital regulations apply to gifts under $5,000. These were somewhat more. My hand froze midway to my glass. "I can't accept. You already have." He lifted his own glass. Two connections formed in blood. The champagne slid down my throat, cool and effervescent. I noticed a bodyguard positioned discreetly by each entrance, their attention split between the exits and their employer. "Mr. Russo." Salvatore, please. He leaned forward, and I caught his scent. Expensive cologne layered over something uniquely male. Do you know what it means when someone saves your life, Natalie? I didn't save. In the old country, we believe it creates a bond. Your blood runs in my veins now. His gaze dropped to my throat, where my pulse hammered visibly. We are connected in the most primitive, unbreakable way. Warning bells clanged in my head, but his intensity was magnetic. No one had ever looked at me with such focus, as though I were the only point of light in a dark universe. It was just a blood donation, I said weakly. There is no just about blood. Something dangerous flickered behind his eyes, especially not blood freely given. The first course arrived, delicacies I couldn't name but that melted on my tongue. We spoke of inconsequential things, my work, his abbreviated version of his import business, my childhood in foster care, his upbringing in Sicily. With each exchange, I felt myself relaxing, drawn into the gravity of his attention. Until his phone vibrated. The change was instantaneous, his expression hardening as he read the message, then firing off a rapid response in Italian. When he looked up, the charming dinner companion had vanished, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. Forgive me, Cara, but our evening must end early, he signaled to his men, who immediately moved into position around us. Antonio will see you home safely. Disappointment flooded me, followed immediately by relief. The logical part of my brain was regaining control, reminding me of all the red flags I'd been ignoring. Thank you for dinner, I said, rising. And please don't feel obligated to. His hand caught mine, his grip gentle but inescapable. This is not the end, Natalie Chen. Merely an intermission. As if to emphasize his point, he raised my knuckles to his lips, his eyes never leaving mine. The gesture was old-fashioned, almost courtly, yet possessed an unmistakable current of possession. Until next time, my blood angel. I didn't realize until the car was halfway to my apartment that he'd slipped something into my hand, a small key on a platinum chain. No explanation, no instructions. Just another mystery from a man who seemed composed entirely of dangerous questions. I should have thrown it away, should have returned the earrings, should have called in sick the next day and changed my phone number, my address, my entire identity. Instead, I placed the key in my jewelry box beside the earrings and went to bed, dreaming of obsidian eyes and blood-red rubies, unaware that I had already unlocked a cage I would never truly escape. 3 weeks passed without word from Salvatore Russo. The ruby earrings remained in my jewelry box, unworn after that night, though I found myself opening the lid daily to confirm they hadn't been a fever dream. The mysterious key hung from its platinum chain beside them, its purpose unknown, a riddle I couldn't solve but couldn't discard. I threw myself into work, taking extra shifts that left me too exhausted for curiosity. Yet each time the hospital doors slid open, I caught myself looking up, half expecting to see his silhouette framed in the entrance. Each black luxury car on the street made my heart stutter. I told myself it was relief when they passed without stopping, not disappointment. You seem distracted, remarked Dr. Patel during a rare quiet moment in the ER. His eyes held knowing concern. Everything okay after that? Dinner? Fine, I said too quickly. It was just a thank you meal. Nothing happened. Good. He glanced around before lowering his voice. Look, I shouldn't tell you this, but I overheard some guys in suits asking about your schedule last week. I told administration not to give out that information. Ice flooded my veins. What guys? Italians. Expensive watches, not much neck. He mimicked a thick-set build. Just be careful, Natalie. Men like Russo don't operate by normal rules. I nodded my thanks, trying to appear appropriately concerned while tamping down the inexplicable thrill that coursed through me. He hadn't forgotten. He was still watching. That evening, I returned to find my apartment building in unusual commotion. Moving vans, workers in uniforms carrying furniture into the elevator. What's happening? I asked Mrs. Goldstein, my elderly neighbor who missed nothing from her strategic position by the mailboxes. New tenant bought the entire top floor, she said, eyes gleaming with gossip. Paying cash from what I heard. Some European businessman. She leaned closer. Very handsome, very mysterious. Came by earlier with an entourage, like something from the movies. My pulse quickened. The whole floor? That's 4 apartments. Knocked down the walls already. Carlos says they're working round the clock. No expense spared. She patted my arm. Maybe you'll catch his eye, a pretty girl like you. If only she knew. I took the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator, needing time to process this development. It couldn't be coincidence. My building was unremarkable, in a neighborhood better described as convenient than desirable. No European businessman would randomly select it unless... The hallway to my apartment appeared unchanged, but something felt different. The air carried a faint scent of fresh paint and expensive cologne. My door looked exactly as I'd left it, yet I found myself checking twice that it was properly locked behind me. Inside, everything was in its place, but the hairs on my neck stood on end. Someone had been here. Nothing was missing. On the contrary, my refrigerator now contained prepared meals in glass containers. My near-empty bottle of shampoo had been replaced with an identical full one, and a vase of fresh blood-red roses sat on my kitchen table. Beside it, another cream envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. The renovations are temporary. Forgive the disturbance. Dine with me tomorrow? The key opens the private elevator to the penthouse. No signature needed. Sleep evaded me that night, my thoughts oscillating between indignation at the invasion of my space and an undeniable fascination with the man who had orchestrated it. By morning, I had decided to confront him, to establish boundaries, to demand explanations. I made it through my shift on autopilot, my mind elsewhere. At home, I showered and dressed with deliberate casualness. Jeans, a simple blouse, minimal makeup. I would not be a willing participant in whatever game he was playing. The key felt heavy as I looped its chain around my neck, tucking it beneath my collar. The service elevator I'd always assumed was broken now had a sleek new panel beside it, with a small keyhole that perfectly fit my platinum key. The elevator ascended silently, opening directly into a space I barely recognized as part of my building. Where once had been 4 modest apartments was now a sprawling penthouse, the walls removed to create an open-concept living area larger than I thought possible. Floor-to-ceiling windows had replaced the exterior walls, offering panoramic views of the city. The decor was minimalist but impeccably luxurious. Italian leather, marble countertops, hardwood floors. Salvatore stood at a wall of windows, backlit by the setting sun, a glass of amber liquid in hand. He wore charcoal trousers and a crisp white shirt open at the collar. More casual than our first meeting, yet no less commanding. A fresh scar peeked from beneath his sleeve. Surgical, from the bullet wound that had brought him into my life. Right on time, he said, without turning, as if he could sense my presence. Punctuality. I admire that in a woman. What is this? I gestured at the space around us, finding my voice. Why are you in my building? He turned then, his dark eyes assessing me with that same intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and fascinating. I dislike inefficiency, he said simply. And traveling across the city to see you seemed inefficient. So you bought my building? The absurdity almost made me laugh. Just the top floor. His lips curved slightly, for now. He moved toward me with a predator's grace, each step deliberate. You're not wearing the earrings. They're too valuable for everyday wear. I stood my ground as he approached, refusing to retreat though every instinct urged caution. Why are you doing this? Doing what, precisely? He was close enough now that I could smell his cologne, could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes. The gifts, the surveillance, moving in upstairs. Normal people don't do these things. I believe we established I am not normal. His gaze dropped to the chain around my neck, following it to where the key disappeared beneath my blouse. Yet you came anyway, my cheeks heated, to tell you to stop. Stop what? His voice lowered, intimate. Stop thinking about the woman whose blood saved my life? Stop wondering what twist of fate brought you to that hospital on that specific night? Stop feeling this connection? There is no connection, I insisted, even as my body betrayed me, leaning imperceptibly toward his. Liar. The word held no accusation, only certainty. His finger traced the chain around my neck, making my skin tingle. You feel it too. Before I could formulate a denial, A discreet cough interrupted us. A server, uniformed and expressionless, had materialized to announce dinner. Salvatore stepped back, the moment broken. "Shall we?" The dining room overlooked the city's lights, now twinkling in the dusk. The table was set for two, with china I suspected cost more than a month's rent. As we ate, exquisite cuisine prepared by what was evidently his private chef, Salvatore steered the conversation to safer topics: my work, my interests, my background. "You mentioned foster care," he said, refilling my wine glass. "No family?" "My mother died when I was 7, father unknown. I rarely discuss this, but the wine and his attentiveness loosened my reserve. I bounced around the system until aging out, put myself through nursing school." Something flickered in his eyes, understanding, perhaps even admiration. "Self-made. You built yourself without foundation. That takes remarkable strength." "Or desperation," I countered. "Never diminish your accomplishments, Natalie." His tone hardened briefly. "The world will do that enough." The conversation shifted to his own background, the carefully edited version. Born in Sicily to a traditional family. Educated in Switzerland. Took over the family import-export business after his father's untimely death. Now based primarily in New York, with interests across Europe and Asia. What he didn't say spoke volumes. No mention of the armed guards I'd glimpsed in the hallway. No explanation for the suspicious looks from the kitchen staff. Equal parts fear and reverence. No acknowledgement of the constant vibration of his phone, which he checked discreetly but regularly. After dinner, he led me to a terrace I hadn't noticed before. A private outdoor space with a small garden and comfortable seating. The night air carried the first hint of autumn crispness. "You have questions?" he said, settling beside me on a cushioned bench. "Too many." I hesitated, then decided on directness. "What do you want from me, Salvatore, currently?" His eyes gleamed in the low light. "To enjoy your company, to understand the woman who is now part of me." He indicated his chest, where my blood now flowed in his veins. "Beyond that, we shall see. I'm a nurse. I've given blood to dozens of patients. It doesn't make us connected. Perhaps not for you." Something haunted crossed his features. "But when you live in my world, Natalie, believing in signs and bonds becomes necessary for survival. The night I was shot, that was meant to be my end. Instead, I received life from a stranger who asked nothing in return. In my experience, such things do not happen by chance." I wanted to argue, to insist on coincidence and medical science, but the conviction in his voice gave me pause. "What happened that night? Why were you shot?" His expression shuddered. "Business disagreement. Most business disagreements don't end in gunfire. Mine sometimes do." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my cheek. "You know what I am, don't you? Even if you don't say it aloud." I swallowed hard. "I have suspicions, and yet, you came tonight." His thumb traced my lower lip, sending electricity down my spine. "Curious, Natalie. Brave, Natalie. What am I to do with you?" The question hung between us, loaded with possibilities that both frightened and thrilled me. I should have pulled away, should have stood up, walked to the elevator, and never looked back. Instead, I remained frozen under his touch, my heart thundering in my chest. His phone vibrated again, the spell broken. Salvatore's face transformed as he read the message, hardening into something cold and calculating. He stood abruptly. "I must attend to something. Antonio will escort you home." His tone was clipped. All warmth evaporated. "We'll continue this another time." Just like that, I was dismissed. The mysterious, attentive Salvatore replaced by a man clearly accustomed to giving orders and having them obeyed without question. I felt oddly bereft as a stone-faced security guard led me to the elevator. "Wait," I said as the doors began to close. "How will I—" "Keep the key, Cara," Salvatore called from across the room, already speaking rapidly in Italian to someone on his phone. "You'll know when to use it." The elevator descended to my floor, leaving me with more questions than answers, and the unsettling realization that I was already anticipating our next encounter. Back in my apartment, I found another change. A small box on my bed containing a phone I hadn't owned before. It was already charged with only one contact programmed into it. I should have reported him. Should have moved apartments. Should have thrown the phone, the key, and the earrings into the East River. Instead, I placed the phone on my nightstand and climbed into bed, wondering what new lines I would cross tomorrow. The new phone remained silent for 2 days. I carried it everywhere, checking it compulsively despite myself, torn between relief and disappointment at its blank screen. The key around my neck grew familiar, warming against my skin beneath my scrubs as I moved through my shifts at the hospital. Everything about my daily life appeared unchanged, yet nothing felt the same. I caught myself scanning rooftops, looking for the security personnel I now suspected were always watching. The black SUV parked across from the hospital entrance. Was it the same one each day? The delivery man who never quite looked me in the eye when he brought flowers to the nurse's station? Did his accent sound Italian? "Chen, you with us?" Dr. Patel's voice snapped me back to the present during morning rounds. I asked about the patient in 204. "Sorry," I mumbled, focusing on the chart in my hands. "Mr. Abernathy is stable, vitals improving after last night's transfusion." Patel studied me with narrowed eyes as our colleagues moved ahead to the next room. "You sure you're okay? You seem distracted." Before I could respond, the burner phone in my pocket vibrated. The first time since I'd received it. My heart leapt traitorously. "Fine," I assured him, fighting the urge to check the message. "Just tired." In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall to read the text. "Car waiting at end of shift. Wear something formal. S. No request, no question mark." Just an assumption of compliance that should have infuriated me. Instead, my pulse quickened with anticipation. The rest of my shift crawled by. At exactly 7, I exited the hospital to find a black Maserati idling precisely where the message had promised. The driver, Antonio, I recognized, opened the door without speaking. "I need to go home first," I said, sliding into the leather interior. "I don't have anything formal with me." "Not necessary, Miss Chen." Antonio's voice was professionally detached. "Mr. Russo has arranged everything." We drove not to my apartment, but to an exclusive boutique in the Upper East Side. Though it was well past closing time, the shop was lit up and staffed with eager attendants who clearly expected me. A strikingly elegant woman greeted me by name. "Miss Chen, welcome. I'm Sophia, Mr. Russo's personal stylist. We have several options prepared for tonight's event." "Event," I echoed, increasingly unsettled by how thoroughly my evening had been orchestrated without my knowledge. "The charity gala," she said, as if I should know. "Now let's find something that will complement those remarkable eyes of yours." What followed was a surreal hour of being draped in couture dresses worth more than my annual salary. Sophia circling like an artist contemplating a canvas. We settled on a midnight blue gown that fell like liquid from a single shoulder, the fabric catching light with subtle iridescence. My reflection was startling. The woman in the mirror looked sophisticated, significant, nothing like the invisible nurse who blended into hospital corridors. "Perfect," Sophia declared. "Now hair and makeup." I emerged from the boutique transformed, hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup enhancing features I hadn't known were worth enhancing. Antonio's eyebrow raised fractionally, the only indication that my appearance had changed at all, before he opened the car door again. We arrived at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, its facade illuminated for an evening event. A red carpet stretched from the street to the entrance, flanked by photographers capturing the arrivals of New York's elite. My stomach clenched with sudden panic. "I can't go in there," I whispered to Antonio. "I don't belong in this world, Mr. Russo disagrees," he replied, unmoved. "He's waiting at the top of the steps," and there he was. Salvatore Russo stood like a sentinel above the glittering crowd, imposing in a tuxedo that emphasized the broad shoulders and narrow waist of a man who maintained his physical power as carefully as his financial kind. Even from a distance, his focus cut through the chaos, fixed on me with laser precision as I emerged from the car. The intensity of his gaze drew me forward like a magnetic force. I moved up the steps toward him, peripherally aware of curious glances, whispered questions, camera flashes. Salvatore Russo rarely attended public functions, I would later learn, and never with a woman on his arm. "You are breathtaking," he said when I reached him, taking my hand and bringing it to his lips in that old-world gesture that sent heat spiraling through me. His eyes lingered on the platinum chain visible at my collarbone. "You wore the key." "It matched the dress," I lied, unwilling to admit I hadn't taken it off since he'd given it to me. His knowing smile suggested he wasn't fooled. "Shall we?" Inside, the museum had been transformed into a fantasy of wealth and influence. Art masterpieces watched silently as New York's most powerful figures circulated beneath crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing freely, conversation a sophisticated hum punctuated by occasional laughter. Salvatore kept me close, his hand at the small of my back, as he navigated the room with practiced ease. He introduced me simply as Natalie, offering no explanation for my presence that might have satisfied the curious eyes that followed us. I noticed how people responded to him, with careful deference tinged with wariness. Conversations paused when he approached. Men straightened their posture. Women's smiles became more deliberate. "Why am I here?" I whispered during a momentary lull, as a waiter offered champagne. "Because I wished you to be," he answered, scanning the room with the vigilance I now recognized as constant, "and because it's time certain people understood your significance." "What significance?" "I'm just a—" "Never just anything, Kara." His voice hardened slightly, "especially not with me." And before I could press further, we were approached by an older man with silver hair and cold eyes, flanked by a young woman dripping in diamonds who looked barely 20. "Russo," the man acknowledged, his accent distinctly New York. "Didn't expect to see you tonight." "Martinelli." Salvatore's posture subtly shifted, angling slightly between me and the newcomer. "I make exceptions for children's hospitals." Of course. Martinelli's gaze slid to me, assessing in a way that made my skin crawl. "Aren't you going to introduce your lovely companion?" "This is Natalie," Salvatore said, his tone offering no further details. Charmed, Martinelli extended his hand, which I took automatically. He held it a beat too long. "You've been keeping this beauty a secret, Salvatore. Not like you to be so possessive." Something dangerous flickered across Salvatore's face. "Perhaps I've found someone worth possessing." The air between the men crackled with unspoken tension. I extricated my hand from Martinelli's grip, unsettled by how quickly the pleasant veneer had thinned to reveal something volatile beneath. "If you'll excuse us," Salvatore said with cold courtesy, steering me away before Martinelli could respond. "Who was that?" I asked when we were safely across the room. "Business associate." Salvatore's jaw was tight, with boundary issues. "Is he like you?" His laugh held no humor. "We operate in adjacent circles." He glanced down at me, his expression softening marginally. "Don't concern yourself with Martinelli. He's become irrelevant." The rest of the evening passed in a whirlwind of introductions and veiled conversations I only partially understood. Salvatore remained attentive, his hand rarely leaving my waist, his eyes constantly monitoring our surroundings even while appearing engaged in pleasantries. I observed him in this environment, how he commanded respect without raising his voice, how others seemed to orbit around him like planets around a sun. Occasionally his phone would vibrate, and he would check it discreetly, sometimes excusing himself for brief periods while leaving me in Antonio's watchful care. During one such absence, I retreated to a quiet alcove for a moment's respite from the overwhelming stimuli. The gallery was nearly empty. Most guests congregated in the main hall where dinner would soon be served. "So you're Russo's new plaything?" The voice, Martinelli's, came from behind a Greek statue, startling me. "Gotta say, you're not his usual type. Less obvious." I stepped back, suddenly aware of my isolation. "Mr. Russo will be returning shortly." "I'm sure he will." Martinelli moved closer, his cologne too strong, his smile too practiced. "He's keeping quite the close eye on you." "Makes me curious what's so special." "Nothing special," I said, edging toward the doorway. "I'm just a nurse." "A nurse?" His eyebrows rose. "Now that is interesting. Salvatore usually prefers women who, well, let's say who already understand our world." "I should get back. Word of advice, sweetheart." He blocked my path casually. "Whatever hold you think you have on him won't last. Men like us don't change, and Salvatore Russo has left a long trail of discarded women who thought they were different. Step away from her." Salvatore's voice cut through the space like a blade. low and deadly. Martinelli raised his hands in mock surrender, though his smile remained. Just getting acquainted with your nurse, Salvatore. Fascinating career choice. The next time you speak to her, if there is a next time, you will address her as Miss Chen and maintain appropriate distance. Salvatore's expression was frigid, controlled fury radiating from every line of his body. Am I clear? Something unspoken passed between the men, some power calculation I couldn't decipher but could feel. Martinelli's smile faltered. Crystal, he said finally, then nodded to me. Miss Chen. He retreated, leaving a charged silence in his wake. Salvatore remained rigid, his eyes tracking Martinelli until he disappeared back into the main hall. We're leaving, he announced, taking my elbow with gentle but firm pressure. The dinner hasn't even started, I protested weakly. The purpose of our attendance has been fulfilled. His voice was clipped as he guided me toward a side exit where, somehow, Antonio was already waiting with the car. The drive passed in tense silence. I stared out the window, processing the evening's undercurrents, while Salvatore made several calls in rapid Italian. His voice grew sharper with each conversation, his free hand occasionally clenching into a fist on the seat between us. We arrived not at my apartment, but at his penthouse. The elevator ride was charged with unspoken tension. Are you going to explain what happened back there? I asked as we entered his living space, kicking off the uncomfortable heels I'd been provided. Salvatore crossed to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal tumblers. Martinelli is a relic who has forgotten his place. What does that mean? I accepted the drink he offered, needing its warmth. And what was all that about making people understand my significance? He studied me over the rim of his glass. There are circles within circles in my world, Natalie. Tonight, I placed you in the innermost one. I never asked to be in any circle of your world, I said, frustration finally breaking through. You've orchestrated this entire evening, this entire relationship, without once asking what I want, and what do you want? His voice softened dangerously. The question caught me off guard. What did I want? To return to my invisible life of work and solitude, to pretend I hadn't felt more alive in the past few weeks than in years prior. I faltered, then found my resolve. I want honesty. I want to understand what's happening here. What am I to you, Salvatore? A blood debt, a novelty, another possession. He set down his glass and moved toward me with predatory focus. You are a miracle I never expected. A woman who gave life without calculation, who sees me, the real me, without flinching. I don't see you at all, I countered. You show me only what you choose to reveal. Then ask. He stood before me now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. What would you know? Who are you? Really, his smile was without humor. You know who I am, Cara. You've known since the hospital. Say it. He reached out, fingers tracing the chain at my neck. I am what Americans call organized crime, what Italians call tradition. My family has controlled certain enterprises for generations. The confirmation should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like exhaling after holding my breath too long. Why me? There must be women who would kill to be in your world. Precisely the problem. His thumb found my pulse point, lingering there. They want the world, not the man. You wanted neither. I still don't, I whispered unconvincingly. Liar, he said again, the same way he'd said it that first night in the penthouse. Not an accusation, but a gentle observation of truth. His hand slid to cup my cheek, and I knew he was going to kiss me. Knew I should pull away. Knew I wouldn't. His lips met mine with surprising gentleness, a question rather than a demand. For one suspended moment, I remained still, balanced on the knife edge of decision. Then something unraveled inside me. Pride, reason, self-preservation, and I was kissing him back with an intensity that shocked us both. Salvatore groaned, his control fracturing as his arms encircled me, pulling me against the solid wall of his chest. The kiss deepened, turned hungry. Years of my solitude combusting in the heat between us. His hands traced the bare skin of my back, where the dress dipped low, each touch igniting new flames. Natalie. He breathed against my mouth, my name transformed into a prayer. Tell me to stop. It was the first time he'd sought my permission for anything, and the irony wasn't lost on me even in my dazed state. Here, in this most intimate moment, he was finally giving me choice. Don't stop, I whispered, surprising myself with my certainty. His eyes darkened, pupils dilating until only a thin ring of brown remained. Without warning, he lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me through the penthouse to a bedroom I hadn't seen before. The space was masculine and minimal, dark woods, crisp linens, and windows overlooking the glittering city. He laid me on the bed with unexpected reverence, stepping back to look at me with an expression of wonder and barely restrained desire. You are so beautiful it hurts to look at you, he said, voice rough. My midnight gown pooled around me like spilled ink, my hair coming loose from its elegant arrangement. I should have felt vulnerable, exposed. Instead, I felt powerful, watching this dangerous man struggle for control because of me. Then don't look, I challenged softly. Touch. Something feral flashed in his eyes. He removed his jacket, then his tie, the methodical movements at odds with the tension radiating from his body. When he joined me on the bed, the controlled facade had returned, though I could feel the leashed power in every calculated move. Are you certain? He asked one final time, hovering above me. In answer, I reached up to unfasten the chain around my neck, placing the key on the nightstand. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. And what followed was a revelation. Beneath his controlled exterior, Salvatore Russo was a man of fierce passions and surprising tenderness. He worshipped my body with the attention of someone memorizing a masterpiece, discovering sensitivities I hadn't known I possessed. When we finally joined, the intensity nearly undid me. Not just physical pleasure, but a bone-deep sense of connection I'd never experienced before. After, as we lay tangled in sheets in each other, the city lights creating patterns across our skin, I traced the surgical scar on his chest, where the bullet had nearly ended him, where my blood now flowed in his veins. Do you believe in fate? I asked, voice hushed in the darkness. His fingers played with my hair, gentle in a way that seemed incongruous with the man the world knew. I believe in signs, in debts, in bonds forged in moments that alter the course of lives. Is that what this is? A debt you're repaying? He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. Do not diminish what's between us, Natalie. This is far more than obligation. I wanted to believe him, desperately. But doubt crept in, impossible to banish completely. Your world and mine, they don't overlap. What happens when the novelty wears off? When you remember who you are and who I am? I have never forgotten who I am. His voice hardened slightly. And I see you more clearly than you see yourself. What does that mean? It means you've been surviving, not living, existing in the margins of a world that never recognized your worth. His fingers skimmed my cheek, until now. The words struck a chord so deep I flinched, unprepared for how thoroughly he'd read me. The unremarkable girl from foster care who'd built a life of service but never belonging, who'd given and given without expectation of return, because experience had taught her to expect nothing. I should go home, I murmured, suddenly overwhelmed. You are home, Salvatore countered, his arm tightening around me. Stay. And I did. Dawn found us still entwined, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. I studied his sleeping face, relaxed in a way it never was in waking hours. The perpetual vigilance softened, the calculating mind at rest. In sleep, I could see traces of the boy he must have been before the weight of his empire settled on his shoulders. His phone vibrated on the nightstand, the screen illuminating with a name in Italian. Careful not to wake him, I slipped from the bed and into the adjoining bathroom, giving him privacy for what was clearly business. The bathroom was a monument to luxury, marble and glass, with a rainfall shower large enough for 4. My reflection caught me by surprise. Hair tousled, lips slightly swollen from his kisses, a faint bruise blooming on my collarbone where his passion had marked me. I looked transformed, awakened, a woman who had been thoroughly claimed. When I emerged, wrapped in a plush robe I'd found hanging on the door, Salvatore was dressed in sleek, casual wear, his expression serious as he ended his call. "Business?" I asked, hovering uncertainly. "Always." He crossed to me, dropping a kiss on my forehead. "I have to go out for a few hours. Antonio will take you anywhere you wish, or you can stay here." "I have a shift at noon," I reminded him. Something like displeasure flickered across his features. "Call in sick." "I can't just—" "You can." He cut me off gently but firmly. "Your dedication is admirable, Natalie, but perhaps it's time to reconsider your priorities." Irritation flared. "My work is important. I save lives, and now your life should be saved in return." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "You've given enough to strangers." "It's not about giving. It's who I am." He studied me for a long moment. "We'll discuss this later. For now, Antonio will drive you home or to the hospital, whichever you prefer." The dismissal was gentle but clear. I dressed in clothes that had appeared mysteriously in his closet, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater in exactly my size, tag still attached. Antonio waited in the foyer, expressionless as ever. "Where to, Miss Chen?" "My apartment, please." The drive was silent. I watched the city transform from the manicured wealth of Salvatore's neighborhood to the practical functionality of my own, feeling the disparate pieces of my life refusing to reconcile. My apartment seemed smaller than I remembered, drab after the opulence of the penthouse. Yet it was mine, earned through my work, my choices. I showered and changed into scrubs, determined to maintain at least this fragment of my identity. The burner phone buzzed as I prepared to leave for my shift. Tonight, 8 p.m. Again, no question, no request, just expectation. I tucked the phone away without responding and headed to the hospital, immersing myself in the familiar rhythms of taking vitals, changing dressings, and administering medications. The ordinariness was both comforting and stifling. "You seem different," Dr. Patel remarked during a coffee break. "Something happened with your friend?" I flushed, wondering if my transformation was that obvious. "It's complicated. With men like him, it always is." His expression turned serious. "Be careful, Natalie. I've seen cases come through this ER, women associated with certain organizations. It never ends well." "I know what I'm doing," I said, more to convince myself than him. "Do you?" He held my gaze. "These men live by different rules. What seems like protection can become a cage." His words echoed in my mind as I finished my shift. A cage. I recalled Salvatore's suggestion that I reconsider my priorities, meaning my career, my independence. The way decisions were made for me without consultation. The constant surveillance I was increasingly certain surrounded me. By 8 o'clock, my apartment felt like a battleground between desire and self-preservation. The key to the penthouse weighed heavy in my palm as I debated. Going upstairs meant taking another step into his world. Staying put meant asserting boundaries he seemed determined to cross. At 8:30, a knock at my door startled me from my deliberation. Salvatore himself stood in the hallway, dressed impeccably as always, his expression unreadable. "You didn't come up," he stated simply. "I was thinking." A dangerous pastime. His attempt at humor fell flat, tension radiating between us. "May I come in?" I stepped aside, watching as he surveyed my modest space with eyes that missed nothing. It struck me that this was the first time he'd actually entered my apartment, despite clearly having had access before. "You're upset," he observed, turning to face me. "I'm confused," I corrected. "This is moving very fast, and I feel like I'm losing control of my own life." "Control is an illusion, Kara." He moved closer, his presence immediately dominating the small room. "We never have as much as we believe." "That's easy for you to say. You control everything and everyone around you." A shadow crossed his face. "Not everything. Not the bullet that nearly killed me. Not the enemies who grow bolder each day." For the first time, I glimpsed genuine concern beneath his confident exterior. Is that why you were shot? Enemies? He sighed, running a hand through his immaculate hair. A rare gesture of discomposure. There's a power shift happening. Old alliances breaking, new threats emerging. Martinelli is merely one face of a larger problem. And last night? That wasn't just a charity event, was it? No, his honesty was unexpected. It was a statement, declaring you under my protection. I don't need protection. You do now. His voice hardened. Being with me comes with complications. The implications sank in slowly. Because now I'm a target. He closed the distance between us, taking my hands in his. Nothing will happen to you. I would burn this city to ash before allowing you to be harmed. The frightening part was that I believed him, and that the declaration, which should have terrified me, instead sent a forbidden thrill through my body. What was happening to me? This isn't the life I chose, I said softly. Perhaps it chose you. His thumb traced circles on my palm. The moment your blood entered my veins. We stood in silence, the crossroads between us impossible to ignore. His world or mine, security or freedom, passion or safety. I need time, I finally said, to think, to understand what I want. Something like relief crossed his features. Not the response he'd expected, but not rejection either. Time you shall have. He brought my knuckles to his lips. But understand this, Natalie Chen. I am a patient man, but not when it comes to what belongs to me. And you? His eyes locked with mine, intense and possessive. You have been mine since the moment your blood saved my life. He left me with those words hanging in the air, the implication clear. My time for consideration was granted, not given. A temporary concession from a man unaccustomed to waiting. I slept fitfully that night, dreams filled with blood and rubies and cages with golden bars. When morning came, I made a decision. I would maintain my normal routine, my identity, while trying to understand the magnetic pull Salvatore exerted on my heart and body. For 3 days, I kept to my resolution. I worked my shifts, declined dinner invitations delivered via the burner phone with polite excuses, and tried to convince myself I was regaining balance. Salvatore didn't press, didn't appear at the hospital or my apartment. His restraint should have reassured me. Instead, I found myself listening for his footsteps, checking the phone for messages, disappointed by his respect for my requested space. On the 4th day, everything changed. I was midway through my morning shift when the atmosphere in the ER subtly shifted. Security guards appeared at entrances, speaking urgently into radios. Dr. Patel approached me with uncharacteristic tension in his shoulders. Natalie, take your break now, he said quietly. Use the staff exit. What's happening? I glanced toward the commotion at the ambulance bay. Multiple gunshot victims coming in. His eyes held warning. Italian males. Designer suits. Sound familiar? My blood ran cold. Salvatore? I don't know. But the police scanner mentioned an ambush at some restaurant in Little Italy. You should make yourself scarce, just in case. I nodded mechanically, but the moment he turned away, I moved toward the trauma rooms rather than the exit. The first ambulance had arrived, paramedics rushing in with a gurney. I glimpsed a bloodied torso, dark hair. My heart stopped. But it wasn't Salvatore. I recognized the patient as one of his security team, the quiet man who often stood behind Antonio. 2 more ambulances arrived in quick succession, each bearing men I'd seen in Salvatore's orbit. My nursing instincts took over, and I was reaching for gloves when a firm hand gripped my arm. Not these patients, Patel warned. Trust me on this. Where's Salvatore? I demanded, panic rising. Was he involved? Before he could answer, the emergency doors burst open, not paramedics this time, but Antonio, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled, blood staining his shirt, though he appeared uninjured. His eyes locked on mine with laser focus. Miss Chen, he said, crossing the room with purpose. You need to come with me. Now, is he hurt? Is Salvatore hurt? The question tore from my throat. Antonio's expression revealed nothing. Please, it's not safe here. Police officers were entering the ER now, their presence adding to the chaos. One pointed toward Antonio, speaking into his radio. We need to go. Antonio insisted, taking my elbow. Dr. Patel stepped between us. She's on duty. You can't just... It's okay, I interrupted, making a split-second decision. I'll go. I grabbed my bag from my locker and followed Antonio through the staff exit to a waiting SUV, not the usual sleek Maserati, but something more armored, with tinted windows. The moment the doors closed, the driver accelerated, taking corners with alarming speed. What happened? I demanded. Is Salvatore alive? Antonio's stoic mask cracked slightly. Alive, yes, but the situation is complicated. Take me to him. That's not possible right now. I'm taking you somewhere safe. I don't want safe. I want answers. My voice rose with fear and frustration. I'm a nurse. If he's hurt, I can help. The best way to help is to stay alive and unharmed, Antonio replied, checking his phone as messages poured in. Mr. Russo was explicit about your protection being the priority. We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city behind, eventually turning onto a private road that wound through dense trees. A massive iron gate opened at our approach, revealing a sprawling estate set back from the road, a fortress disguised as a country manor, with discreet security visible at strategic points. What is this place? I asked, as we pulled up to the entrance. One of Mr. Russo's properties. You'll be safe here until the situation is contained. The interior was elegant, but fortified. I noticed the thickness of the doors, the reinforced windows, the subtle security cameras. A housekeeper appeared, introducing herself as Maria, leading me to a suite of rooms that had clearly been prepared in advance. Fresh flowers, clothes in my size in the closet, even my preferred brand of toiletries in the bathroom. How long am I supposed to stay here? I asked Antonio. Until Mr. Russo comes for you or sends word. His tone made clear the conversation was over. Maria will provide anything you need. With that, he departed, leaving me in a gilded prison with no information about what had happened to the man whose blood now seemed inextricably linked with mine. Hours passed in agonizing slowness. I tried the television, finding news reports of a suspected organized crime incident in Little Italy, 3 dead, multiple injured, no names released. My burner phone had no signal in this remote location, and the house phone connected only to Maria or security. Night fell, bringing storms that lashed at the windows, matching my turbulent emotions. I paced the suite, alternating between worry for Salvatore and anger at being whisked away without consent. The power dynamics that had both attracted and concerned me were now in full display. I was a protected asset, moved like a chess piece at his command, even in his absence. Around midnight, I heard commotion downstairs, raised voices, hurried footsteps. I rushed to my door, opening it to find Maria blocking the hallway. Please return to your room, Miss Chen, she said firmly. What's happening? Is Salvatore here? Her expression softened slightly. The doctor is with Mr. Russo now. I will inform you when... I pushed past her, nurse's instincts overriding decorum. I am a doctor. A slight exaggeration, but necessary. Following the sounds of activity, I descended the grand staircase and moved toward what appeared to be a study. 2 guards stood outside, straightening at my approach. Let her pass, came a familiar voice from within. Not Salvatore's, but Antonio's. The guard stepped aside reluctantly. I entered to find a scene from a war zone transplanted into luxury surroundings. Medical equipment had transformed the study into a makeshift treatment room, and there, on a leather couch, lay Salvatore. He was conscious but pale, his shirt removed to reveal blood-soaked bandages around his shoulder and torso. A man in surgical scrubs was examining the wounds while Antonio stood guard nearby. Salvatore's eyes, though glazed with pain, found mine immediately. Natalie. My name on his lips sounded like relief. You shouldn't be here. I moved to his side, nurse mode activating as I assessed his condition. Gunshot wounds? Why isn't he in a hospital? Too dangerous, Antonio answered. Hospitals have too many entry points, too many unknown variables. I turned to the doctor, who looked exhausted. Status? He seemed startled by my professional tone, but answered automatically. 2 GSWs, shoulders a through and through clean. Abdominal wound more concerning. Bullets still lodged near the liver. He's lost significant blood, needs surgery, but refuses transport. I'm not leaving this property while Natalie is here, Salvatore said, voice strained but commanding. Bring whatever you need. The doctor looked exasperated. I've told you, without proper facilities. I'm O negative, I interrupted, rolling up my sleeve. Universal donor. Salvatore's eyes locked with mine. The symbolism not lost on either of us. Once again, my blood would flow into his veins, but this time, with full knowledge of who and what he was. No, he protested weakly. You've given enough. I sat beside him, already examining the medical supplies. It appears I haven't. The next hours passed in a blur of medical procedures. I assisted the doctor. Dr. Reeves, I learned, a private physician accustomed to treating injuries that couldn't be reported, as he removed the bullet and repaired the damage. My blood transferred to Salvatore through medical tubing, creating an even more tangible connection between us. By dawn, Salvatore was stabilized, sleeping under sedation. I sat beside him, exhausted but unwilling to leave. Antonio entered quietly, placing a hand on my shoulder. You should rest, he said, with unexpected gentleness. I'll stay with him. What happened, Antonio? I asked, too tired for evasion. The truth. He hesitated, then sighed. Martinelli. After the gala, he saw Mr. Russo's attachment to you as weakness, an opportunity to make a move against the family. Because of me? Horror washed through me. No, Antonio said firmly. This conflict has been brewing for months. Martinelli merely accelerated his timeline, believing Mr. Russo would be distracted. Was he? The question was barely a whisper. Antonio's expression softened. Mr. Russo is never distracted from business. But yes, his concern for your safety influenced his movements yesterday. Made him predictable. Guilt crushed my chest. Those men in the hospital will recover, he assured me. As for Martinelli, a grim satisfaction crossed his features. He will trouble no one ever again. The implication hung heavily in the room. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the violence that surrounded Salvatore's existence. Instead, I felt a complicated relief, mingled with concern only for the man before me. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait. For him to heal. For the situation to stabilize. And then? Antonio studied me with unexpected perception. That depends on you, I think. I remained by Salvatore's side throughout the day, monitoring his vitals, changing his dressings, administering medications. By evening, he was conscious again, his natural strength asserting itself despite the trauma his body had endured. You're still here, he murmured, reaching for my hand. Where else would I be? His fingers tightened around mine. Safe, away from this life. I'm exactly where I need to be. The certainty in my voice surprised us both. He struggled to sit up, wincing with the effort. Natalie, listen to me. What happened yesterday? It's the reality of my world, the danger, the violence, the constant vigilance. I was selfish to bring you into it. You didn't bring me anywhere, I countered. I chose to follow. Did you? His eyes searched mine. Or did I manipulate circumstances until you had no real choice? The question struck at the heart of my own doubts. Had I been gradually ensnared? My independence eroded through calculated moves? Or had I recognized something essential in this complicated, dangerous man? Something that called to parts of myself I'd never acknowledged? 3 days ago, I was pulling away, I said slowly, setting boundaries, reclaiming my life. When I heard you were hurt, none of that mattered. I just needed to get to you. That's not love, Kara. That's adrenaline, crisis response. Maybe Stockholm Syndrome. His bitter laugh ended in a grimace of pain. Don't tell me what I feel, anger flared unexpectedly. I've spent my life invisible, giving pieces of myself away and expecting nothing in return. With you, for better or worse, I feel seen, valued. Even in your most controlling moments, you've never looked through me. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then a vulnerable hope he quickly masked. What I am cannot change, Natalie. The dangers that surround me will never disappear. I'm not asking them to. I took a deep breath, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. But I won't be a protected pet either. If I'm in your life, I'm in your life fully, not hidden away when trouble comes, not kept in the dark about decisions that affect me. You're asking to be a partner to a man whose business partners occasionally try to kill him, he said incredulously. Do you understand what you're saying? Probably not entirely, I admitted. But I understand enough. I want truth between us, Salvatore. Complete truth. He was silent for a long moment, internal calculations visible in his eyes. Finally, he nodded once, decisively. Truth, then. I love you, Natalie Chen, from the moment your blood saved my life, perhaps. Or maybe from the first time you stood your ground against me. I didn't plan it. Didn't want it. Love is vulnerability, and men in my position cannot afford vulnerability. The confession, raw, unvarnished, stole my breath. Vulnerable, yet here you are. Here I am, he agreed, grimacing as he shifted position. Shot because I was thinking of you instead of watching for Martinelli's men. Breaking every rule I've lived by. Risking everything. Is it worth it? I asked softly. His free hand rose to cup my cheek. That is the question, isn't it? Is Natalie Chen worth restructuring an empire for? Worth changing habits that have kept me alive for decades? I waited, heart suspended. The answer, terrifyingly, is yes. His thumb traced my lower lip, but the question remains whether I am worth the danger you'll face, the compromises you'll make, the normal life you'll forfeit. I had spent the hours of his surgery contemplating exactly this. The nurse who saved lives in the conventional way, versus the woman who could stand beside this powerful, complicated man as he navigated his dangerous world. The invisible existence I'd constructed versus the vibrant, if perilous life that beckoned. I've never had a normal life, I said finally, and I've never felt fully alive until you. There will be rules, he warned, steel entering his voice despite his weakened state. Non-negotiable precautions, security measures, and there will be limits to those rules, I countered. My work, my independence. These aren't accessories I'm willing to discard. A smile, genuine, not the calculated charm he often deployed, transformed his face. Negotiating terms already. You'll be formidable in this world. I'm not joining your business, I clarified quickly. No, but you would be joining my life. The two cannot be entirely separated. His expression turned serious again. I cannot promise safety, Natalie, but I can promise that every resource at my disposal, every man, every dollar, every ounce of my strength, will be dedicated to protecting what's mine. And make no mistake, his voice deepened possessively. You are mine, as surely as my blood is now yours. I should have bristled at the declaration. Instead, I felt a sense of rightness settle in my bones. And you are mine, I replied, the words carrying the weight of choice, of claiming rather than being claimed. All of you, the businessman, the protector, the patient, the man. 6 months later, I stood on the terrace of our Sicilian villa, watching the Mediterranean sparkle under the setting sun. My nursing license had transferred internationally, allowing me to work part-time at a local clinic while completing a trauma specialization. Salvatore's business had evolved, some aspects eliminated entirely, others legitimized, the empire restructuring around its emperor's new priorities. The danger hadn't disappeared, but it had changed shape. I was no longer kept in protected ignorance, but included in security briefings, aware of threats, involved in decisions. The ruby earrings he'd first given me had been joined by other pieces, each marking milestones in our unconventional romance, but none so precious as the platinum band on my left hand, inset with a single ruby that matched the key I still wore around my neck. I heard his footsteps before I felt his arms encircle my waist from behind, his now familiar scent enveloping me as he pressed a kiss to my neck. Regrets, cara mia, he murmured against my skin. I leaned back into his solid strength, watching the sun sink into the sea, a world away from the Manhattan hospital where my blood had first flowed into his veins, binding us in ways neither science nor superstition could fully explain. Not one, I answered truthfully, turning in his arms to face the man who had seen me when I was invisible. The dangerous guardian who had shown me that safety and passion weren't mutually exclusive. The complicated soul whose darkness complemented rather than extinguished my light. Some choices rewrite destiny. Blood calls to blood, he agreed. The words an echo of what he'd told me in those first tentative days. His hand rested protectively over my abdomen, where our child, not yet announced but suspected, might already be growing. A new blood bond, a continuation of what had begun in that hospital room. As his lips found mine in the fading light, I knew with bone-deep certainty that some connections transcended logic, defied categorization. What had begun with an anonymous donation to a dying stranger had transformed into a bond neither of us had sought, but both had ultimately chosen. A love story written in blood, sealed with rubies, and destined to leave its mark on two worlds that had never been meant to merge. Until they did.